Dark.
Last week on Amateur Game Review, Zach talked about the recent re-release of Goldeneye for Xbox and the Nintendo Switch. We both wanted to do a video, so we thought it would be fun to compare Goldeneye to its spiritual successor. What has the better port, and what is overall the better game? Hi, I'm Mason, and let's talk about Perfect Dark. I've wanted to talk about Perfect Dark for a long while now, but the timing had never felt right. I was hoping to talk about it closer to the release of the upcoming reboot, however, it seems that is a longer ways off than I would like it to be. After Zach told me he was going to review the recent Goldeneye port for Xbox and the Switch, I felt like it made sense to finally talk about its spiritual successor, and why I think it's not only the superior port, but also the better game. I do recommend watching Zach's Goldeneye review before this video, as he did a great job discussing the port, and because it ties perfectly into this video. Perfect Dark was built off the foundation Goldeneye had laid. Both games were built on the same engine, but it was upgraded during development for Perfect Dark. It was so much more advanced, the game actually required the Nintendo 64 expansion pack just to play the campaign. In the end, Perfect Dark had more content and game modes than Goldeneye, such as a brand new game mode called Counter Operative that had one player play as the main character, Joanna Dark, and the other player try to stop her. The Joanna player only had one life, but when the other player died, they would switch to another soldier. Even the multiplayer was an upgrade from Goldeneye. The combinations were endless. Perfect Dark offered 6 different game modes, 16 maps, and 43 weapons to choose from. Hell, that's more content than what most modern games have to offer right now. One thing that carries over from Goldeneye are the difficulty settings. Depending on which difficulty you choose from, you'll have different objectives and have to run around almost aimlessly to complete them. The level design is surprisingly not linear. The levels remind me of Deus Ex, if it were condensed down to fit on the Nintendo 64. It's hard to compare the campaign modes, as one comes from an established spy movie franchise, and the other is a wacky sci-fi story taking place in a dystopian cyberpunk world, so I will let you decide on what you prefer. Overall, I think Perfect Dark is the better game, and it has so much more to offer than Goldeneye. I find it funny though that Perfect Dark has been ported many times, and Goldeneye so far has only received one. Perfect Dark was first ported to the Xbox 360 back in 2010, and again in 2015 with the release of the Rare Replay on the Xbox One. Both versions run at 1080p 60 frames a second. However, it then received an Xbox One X upgrade in 2019, bringing the game's resolution up to a native 4K. Finally, for the Xbox Series X, the game was given Auto HDR capabilities. Obviously, this port has had a long life, with numerous quality of life updates. But for simplicity's sake, I'll just be comparing the original Nintendo 64 version of Perfect Dark with the Xbox Series X, as the port largely remains the same across the console generations. Just by watching the first cinematic, you can immediately see the improvements 4J Studios has made in this remastered Perfect Dark. The old muddy textures have been replaced with new, high-quality textures that give us a sharper look at the world. If you look at the fans on top of this building, they go from odd spiral shapes to actual fans. Or right here in this office, the stone wall etchings are barely visible, but can now be seen clearly in this remaster. The skyboxes have also been changed, and it gives the city skyline some new life. It really shows off the dystopian, cyberpunk world Perfect Dark takes place in. Looking at the sky right here in this cinematic, the sky here goes from a black screen with the moon just sitting there by itself, to a starry night sky with light coming off of the moon. It just looks better. The biggest change graphically are the character and weapon models. The models have been completely revamped from the ground up, going from what would have been a couple hundred polygons on the Nintendo 64 to thousands on the newer systems. The models aren't exactly realistic looking, but have a retro look so they fit really well with the blockiness of Perfect Dark, which really shows off the talent the developers had. The port does have other enhancements besides graphics. The controls now feel how a modern shooter should, and it gives you full right analog stick control for the camera. The 64 controls have obviously not aged well at all, and the modern setup is a welcome change. You can choose between a Halo 3 influenced control scheme or a Call of Duty influenced layout. I personally like the Call of Duty layout the best, but the Halo 3 layout does give me some good old 360 nostalgia. The sound quality overall has been drastically improved upon. The Nintendo 64 recordings were only 16 megabytes in order to fit them on the console, leading to low quality, heavily compressed sounds and music. Luckily, the developers still had the original masters of the recordings and used them for this port, meaning the same classic sounds and music can be heard in better quality, and how they were meant to be heard all along.
Who are you and what are you doing here?
Help! She's got a gun!
Who are you and what are you doing here?
Look out! She's got a gun!
Are they all expendable?
Don't joke. You have to be careful, Joanna. Code keys will only operate while the owner is alive. If you kill them, the key is useless. Armed guards are a different matter, of course.
What's the target location?
Work your way down the building to the ground level. Dr. Cowell will be in a research lab somewhere in the underground facility.
How will I recognize him?
We don't have an...
Since Perfect Dark and Goldeneye were both developed by Rare, I think it's fair to compare this port with the Xbox Goldeneye port. The Perfect Dark port is a perfect remaster in every sense of the word. While the Goldeneye port may have updated the controls and bumped up the resolution and frame rate a bit, it's disappointing when compared to the amount of work that went into bringing its successor to modern consoles. What really sets them apart is the online multiplayer. Perfect Dark features full online capabilities. You can play with up to 7 people online, or split screen if you want to bring back some childhood memories with some friends. If you're forever lonely, you can even play against bots. Online multiplayer just makes sense when a game like Goldeneye or Perfect Dark are well known for its multiplayer, and I think it's disappointing Goldeneye skipped out on one of the platforms it's available on. It feels incomplete. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe for more. If you want, leave a comment about Perfect Dark, or any game that you just want to talk about. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video.